How you guys doing? I appreciate it. I thought I would start with an opening statement for the essence of time and hopefully allow me to address many of the questions that you guys might have. I know it's been a significant amount of time since we had an opportunity to get together. First of all, the virtual off season. I feel good about the work that we've been able to get done in the virtual off season. The players have probably been more comfortable with the platform than the coaches, although there's been a lot of growth in that area over the time. It has been productive. We've had an opportunity to look at a lot of video, to do our normal install processes, to really have the normal interactions that you have with guys in the spring, at least from a teaching standpoint. Obviously, we weren't in their physical presence, and there's some angst regarding that. I think as a teach tool, you lose a little of the physical feedback that you get when you're instructing, when you're sitting in the same room with people. But largely, the participation was great. The attentiveness was great. We feel like we were able to get a lot done. Obviously, we weren't able to get physical work done, and so there's some anxiety associated with that. And I think that those are the two critical points about this virtual off season that are areas of concern as we potentially head into the preseason and training camp scenarios. And not only problems for us, but problems for all of us globally is, we're concerned about their overall physical conditioning. The spring work provides us a lot of work in that area. There's just under 1,000 or so snaps if you look at OTAs and mini camps in the normal spring. And those snaps not only allow guys to learn what to do and to gain detail in their work, but also allows them to really start the process of physical conditioning and preparation for the football. And so that level of conditioning is lost. And, I don't want to underscore that. That is significant. We have concerns in that area, as I'm sure everybody does. And then the physical reps are a teach tool. And it levels the playing field once we get in training camp for new guys or young guys. And so learning is going to be a significant element of this process, this evaluation process that we're going to get into. And those that are slow learners who lack the normal repetitions that you get in the spring are going to be working at a disadvantage. By the same token, those that have been here and know what to do are probably working at a distinct advantage in this environment. And we've been very transparent with our guys in an effort to talk about what's significant about this environment relative to normal ones, in an effort to give everybody an opportunity to put their best foot forward and to come as prepared as they can come. And so I think those are the two critical elements of the discussion in that regard: physical conditioning, and those that are new to the process and new to us and not having an understanding of what lies ahead. There's some anxiety there. And then the learning aspect, like I talked about. From a staffing standpoint, we have two new coaches on offense, and their acclimation has been pretty fluid. As a staff, I don't think that the virtual work has been that significant to us. We've been able to get a lot of the things done that we normally get done. With the exclusion of travel, even dating back into pre-draft time, we spend so much of that time on the road and working compartmentally, preparing for the draft, reviewing 2019, preparing for 2020, with eliminating a lot of the physical travel in terms of draft prep. I think really allowed us to maybe get ahead in terms of some of the office work, some of the evaluation work in terms of 2019 and the preparation work and planning relative to 2020. So even though we've got two new staff members, I do feel good about the overall trajectory of staff readiness and cohesion. And I'm solidly anticipating the next step in that regard. In terms of planning for camp, we are, faced with some new challenges, man. We're doing training camp at Heinz Field. As a matter of fact, I got a walkthrough or two in the near future over there just to check its overall readiness. but have been through that process some and have toured the facility and made some logistical plans and feel really good about Heinz Field being a good venue for us to execute our camp in preseason. It checks a lot of boxes. The grass surface is great. There's ample space to apply the social distancing guidelines that are going to be prescribed to us by the NFL, the convenience of it all and so forth. Obviously, you guys know me. I'm saddened by the fact that we can't go to St. Vincent and Latrobe. Man, I'm a training camp lover. I do think there's some intangible value in going away to camp. But again, that's something that's outside of our control here in 2020. We're not going to waste a lot of time worrying about things that are outside of our control. We're going to have a hardcore plan, but we're going to be light on our feet. We're going to make necessary adjustments and continue to develop our group. And we're excited about doing it at Heinz Field. We appreciate all the assistance that we've gotten from Jimmy Sacco and company over there. And the planning in regards to that will continue as we continue to get details from the NFL office regarding COVID protocol and best practices. We're going to continue to make sure that we're improving that space in all the ways that we can. But space is awesome over there, dining facilities, locker room facilities from a spacing standpoint. There's elements of the stadium over there that I was unaware of because, usually when I'm going to work, I got a one-track mind. So really, really excited about the overall trajectory of that and what that's going to look like. The last thing I'll talk about is the social justice. As an organization and as a staff, we've really focused our energies on supporting our players and their wishes and establishing structure and support to the things that they want to say and do. We spent a lot of group time talking about the ongoing issues, talking about the platform that they have and how to best utilize it and how to do so thoughtfully. And our position is simple. We're going to support our players in their willingness to partake in this, whether it's statements or actions. You guys know my feelings. I've stated it in the past. Statements are good, but impact is better, particularly long-term impact. And so those that have a desire to participate in a positive way, they're going to be supported by us. All that we ask is whatever it is they say and do, they do so thoughtfully and they do with class. And so that's our mentality, but it has been a lot of intimate discussions about things that have transpired and their feelings and more importantly, individual and collective courses of action based on those feelings. And, we support our guys. We've gotten great support from Blair and community relations on these issues. John Mitchell, our assistant head coach, has worked closely with her in an effort to support our players to make sure that their intended statements or actions are interpreted in the correct way and represent their legitimate thoughts and feelings. And that's something that we've been really transparent about. We've talked openly with those guys about a lot of things that they say and do are going to be weaponized one way or another for political reasons. And so we ask them to pause and really be thoughtful about the things that they say and do with that understanding. And we feel good about the traction that we've gained in that area. Obviously, it's going to be an ongoing thing. We've set up some structural committees under the direction of John Mitchell and Blair in the effort to organize and do things properly in that way. But largely, this time period, this virtual offseason is really giving us time to open the forum and hear from those guys on some of those critical things that are going on in our society. And we're members of society like everybody else. We don't live in a vacuum. And so it's been good, frank communications. And to be quite honest with you, our guys, by the virtue of team in the game of football, man, really have a nice audience that many people don't get an opportunity to have, man. People that they respect and understand, yet understand that there are differences and are able to share and learn. Some of the discussions have been frank and good, and I'd imagine they will continue appropriately as the opportunities present themselves moving forward. So that's just a snapshot of a lot that's going on with us. We're adjusting and dealing with the virtual offseason and bringing that to a close. The acclimation of our rookies and new people has been a challenge in that area. The new coaches, like I mentioned, the planning associated with training camp, and really the instability in that planning because we don't have hard dates and things of that nature. But we feel really good about the structure of what we have planned. We have the infrastructure, the practice spaces, the daily schedules, if you will. We just don't have it with dates on it as of yet, as we wait to hear from some of those things from New York. And, that's one of the things that we've been talking about significantly as a staff. We got to have a hardcore plan, but a lot of those plans will hinge on information and protocols and things that we receive from the league office, and we're prepared to receive those and move accordingly. And then the social justice, like I mentioned. So that's enough of me talking. I'll open it up to questions. Hopefully I've covered enough things to kind of help you in some of those areas.
All right, Coach, thank you. First question will be from Ed Bouchette from The Athletic. Ed, go ahead.
Unmute, Ed. What's up?
All right, we'll circle back to Ed. Next one up, Jerry Dulac. Unmute. Go ahead, Jerry Dulac.
Hey, Coach. I just, in light of what you said at the opening, do you think there will be preseason games? And if not, what kind of additional challenges will that present for you?
I assume that they're going to be preseason games, so I hadn't begun to contemplate the challenges that it'll present. We've got enough real challenges adjusting to present circumstance for me to think about and to kind of forecast and create issues that don't exist at this juncture.
All right, next up is Joe Rutter from the Tribune Review. Joe, go ahead.
Yeah, hi, Mike. In the past at St. Vincent, you've used that second field a lot for individual type of work. At Heinz, with just the one field, how are you going to be able to get everything done you want?
We've got additional space than 100 yards. There's perimeter space that we also have to use. From time to time, we work on a one field structured format, whether we're working in the indoor or whether when we're working at Heinz Field. We've had several practices at Heinz Field. My only concern about the utilization of Heinz Field is not space. It's about the wear and tear on the field. And our intentions are right now on a regularly scheduled basis to be determined that we'll get on buses and come over to the south side and utilize our grass fields here from time to time in an effort to help preserve those fields. But that schedule is yet to be determined. But those are the only concerns about Heinz Field as a venue regarding the field surface.
Okay, next one is Dale Lawley. Dale, go ahead.
Mike, you don't have a lot of quote unquote camp battles, but could those camp battles be a little more difficult for the coaching staff to look at this year based on perhaps fewer preseason games, maybe truncated practice times or those kind of things because of the situation that you're being put in?
No question that we as coaches are going to have less tools for the evaluation process. Just in terms of volume, the number of snaps will be significantly less. You have to also acknowledge that there's an element of teaching that has been lost in the virtual offseason, and that could affect the competition, at least at the initial stages. The big thing is that we have to, leave the door open for viable men, and those men have to move quickly in terms of developing understanding and displaying that understanding. So there's going to be big time urgency in that regard, but it'll be urgency that is felt globally. There'll be challenges for all 32, and from that standpoint, it's going to be competitively fair.
Thanks,
okay,
Mike.
Next question, Brooke Pryor from ESPN.com. Brooke, go ahead.
Hey, Mike, I'm curious, regarding the social justice talk that you mentioned. How are the conversations that you're having with your guys different from the ones that you had in 2017? And is the atmosphere now different in a way that may result in real change from what you've seen?
There's different urgency in season than in the off season. So a lot of the things that occurred in 2017 transpired in the midst of our journey that is the season. And so your focus is different. The amount of time that you have to give to non-football things is different. The timeliness of this from the offseason perspective allowed us to really, unearth some discussions and take our time and not be concerned about time as a factor as it related to those discussions. So it made it very different.
Okay, next question. Jeff Hathorn from 93.7 The Fan. Jeff, go ahead.
Hey, Mike. Thanks for doing this. Appreciate it.
No problem. No problem.
Can you give us an idea of how Ben's workouts are going and how your conversations with him have been?
I'll say this is hearsay because I have not witnessed his workouts. I have communicated with him consistently throughout, and he's comfortable and pleased with where he is. Some of the people that have had an opportunity to work out with him have been impressed and are pleased with where he is. The medical experts are comfortable with where he is in the rehabilitation process and the overall trajectory of his readiness for 2020. And so all those things being said, I'm comfortable with where he is.
Okay, next question. Jim Wexel. Jim, go ahead.
Snap at training camp. Who's going to take the first snap at left guard and nose tackle?
We're still determining those things. With the lack of opportunity for learning in the offseason and teaching, we're acknowledging as a staff that we got to make some quick decisions and then kind of roll from there. And so, I've talked to Matt Filer. Matt Filer is probably going to take the first snap at left guard. And Ty is probably going to take the first snap at nose guard, and we'll work from there.
Thank you.
Okay, well, you guys are all tweeting that out. Next question is Will Graves from the Associated Press. Will, go ahead.
I gave him a little something, Bert.
I noticed that.
Mike,
we don't have time to mess around in this environment, guys. We lost 900 snaps like everybody did with the virtual offseason. And so, you got to give the benefit of the doubt to people that have been here, at least as a basis to begin. And that's the way that we're going to begin the training camp process, knowing that the process is going to be an abbreviated one. So those that have experience and been a part of this thing probably going to have a leg up just as a basis to begin. So we're going to start with Matt Filer at left guard. Those young tackles and Zach Banner and Chooks have been here and have played. And so the combination of those guys provide the most experience for us. And that's probably the appropriate place to begin. And the same thing with Tyson. Tyson's a veteran football player, man, that's been here, that knows how to play the game. He and Dan are going to start, but he'll probably take the first snap based on the things that I've talked about relative to current circumstances. And then we'll go from there. We're not going to, we're going to have a hardcore plan, but be light on our feet and be ready to adjust based on what it is that we see.
Mike, Brooke kind of stole my question there, and I was going to ask you about political beatniks, but I will save you from having to rehash that from a few years ago. My question is more along the lines
Thank you.
My question is more along the lines of, you talked about missing 900 snaps, and I know you're not in pads, but there is a physical element of doing that. If you have to start camp, or you mentioned angst and anxiety in terms of missing that from your coaching staff, how comfortable do you feel only having 2 weeks or so to get ready for you guys to play an actual physical tackle football game, given the fact that you didn't even have the usual offseason stuff?
I'm not comfortable, but I imagine that none of my peers are comfortable either. And so I'm comfortable with that. Physical conditioning is going to be a significant element of this process. It is going to define their journey and ours collectively. Those that are communal conditioners are working at a disadvantage in this 2020 environment. Those that are new to professional football and what's really physically required of them through the evaluation process is working at a distinct advantage. So, we've talked openly about that elephant in the room. It doesn't lessen the anxiety. Man, we better have a group of guys that come ready to work from a physical conditioning standpoint. And if we do, we'll be able to navigate the other challenges. If we don't, all the other challenges are going to be magnified. But that is a true statement for us and the other 31 as well.
All right, Ed Bouchette, we're going to circle back with you real quick before we move on. Ed, go ahead with your question. All right, we'll figure out Ed maybe at some point. Next question, Guy Junker from Channel 4. Guy, go ahead. Okay, moving right along. Albie Oxenreiter, Channel 11. Albie?
Hi, Mike. How are you?
Good. How about you?
Good. Appreciate your time. Question about how you envision the season. Do you think at this point, as of this conversation, that there will be fans? And if there are not fans, how do you think your team will be affected by that? How do you think it will be to play in front of limited fans or no fans?
You know, I have no idea about whether we will have fans or not, or the number of fans. You know, I haven't been a part of those discussions. I've had enough things to worry about in my current position. How it relates to ball, you know, is going to be significant in terms of pre-snap communication on both sides of the ball and relative to being home and away. And so it's going to be more of a practice-like atmosphere, I would imagine. And so we're going to spend some time, or we anticipate spending some time throughout the evaluation process of preseason, having a keen awareness about maybe the impact or the opportunities presented because of that, or the challenges presented because of that. And so that's something that we're going to discover and have a heightened awareness regarding through the preparation process. But I hadn't been a part of many intimate details about the reality of the number of spectators and things of that nature.
Okay, thank you.
Next question is from Brian Cook from Golden Sky. Brian, go ahead.
Coach, can you hear me?
Yes.
All right, fantastic. Thank you for taking my question.
No problem.
Coach, with so much happening in the world, of course, COVID-19, and as you mentioned, the civil unrest within the boundaries of the United States, what do you think people need to do to bring about some level of healing across the board? I mean, whether it's within the breadth of the NFL or the general public, so that everybody can live on one accord and one day live in peace and harmony?
You know, I'm a football coach, man. You know, I don't necessarily have those answers. But I'll tell you this, you know, the things that we've been talking to our team about and the things that we've been talking about internally within our organization is that, man, this unrest is an opportunity to learn and to listen and to grow and to make sure that you take care of yourself, your own heart, in your own home first, and work from there. That's something that I try to live by, and that's something that I encourage our guys to live by. Platforms like this are awesome. There's also responsibilities that come with it, and so we want to take care of all of those things. And I think first and foremost, it starts within, and I think that could apply to society at large as well.
All right, thank you.
Okay, next question is from Aditi from NFL Network. Aditi, go ahead. Okay, moving right along. Tim Benz from the Trib. Tim, go ahead.
Mike, I was curious what you thought you and your fellow coaches did well to put your defensive players into a position to generate so many sacks and turnovers last year. And if those numbers are attainable again in 2020, if they aren't, what do you do to get off the field if you don't get as much splash on defense?
It's our intentions to be as good as we can be, and it's reasonable to expect us to improve in that area and to improve in all areas. We got a young nucleus defensively, guys that have been here. A lot has been written and said about the acquisition of Mika and its impact, and for him to have an offseason and a preseason in the position that he's in, a guy who plays in the middle of the field largely for us, I think is significant. We're excited about it. I think more than anything, it's a culture process for us. It's something that we try to bring to our daily work and in every drill that it is that we do, and that's the ball awareness that allows us to produce the things that you mentioned, and to come in great condition and to play with great physicality and hustle. And so it's a cultural thing for us. We respect the process of building it. We're going to be challenged in that area the same way that everyone is. We're going to work our tails off to produce the outcome that you mentioned, because it's a significant component of us playing great defense as it is anyone. The ability to take the ball away and to spend a significant amount of time on the sideline defines dominant defense.
Thank you.
Okay, next up is Brian Batko from the Post-Gazette. Brian, go ahead.
Hey, Mike, thanks for that depth chart news a little bit ago.
No problem. I had to give you something today.
Yeah, I know you said that as long as guys do things thoughtfully, you're going to support them, whether it's actions or words. To be clear, if that includes taking a knee during the anthem, which has been an issue the last few years, is that something you're okay with? And if so, how concerned are you with pushback on that from fans or anybody else, I guess?
I'll be clear again. It's our intentions to support those guys in any statement or actions that they take, as long as it's done so thoughtfully and with class, and that includes kneeling. Those are my feelings. That are also the feelings of us as an organization.
Okay, I think we're going to try Ed Bouchette part 3 here. Ed, you ready now? Go ahead.
Third time's a charm, Mike.
What's up, Ed? How you doing?
I'm okay now. With everything that's going on, is it realistic that you can actually play football this year, and do you think you'll start on time?
I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful on both questions. But I'm always an optimistic person, and I have been a part of the process. And I think when you're a part of the process, I sit on committees. I've had intimate conversations with logistical people and professionals. And there's probably greater comfort when you're a part of the process than when you're on the outside. So it allows me to be optimistic about both things you mentioned.
Okay, we're going to circle back with Aditi. Aditi, go ahead with your question.
I apologize for that. Happy belated Father's Day to you, Coach Tomlin.
Thank you.
It was my baby screaming, which is why I couldn't answer. I couldn't respond before. When you talk about the opportunity of the platform right now that players have, what about the NFL and where we are as a country, both in terms of civic unrest and the pandemic? Do you feel there's an opportunity in playing? Do you feel there's an opportunity if you come back to the field to do something for the country right now?
Aditi, I'll be bluntly honest with you. That's not my charge. I hadn't thought largely about the impact of the NFL or the responsibility of us as a whole. I've really focused my energies on serving the players that I lead and making sure that they're getting the support that they need regarding the present circumstances. I've taken a more narrow or grassroots approach. There are people that are employed to have that perspective, and I'm not one of them. So I hadn't pondered a lot of those possibilities.
Okay, time for a couple more here. We're going to try back to Guy Junker from Channel 4. Guy, go ahead. Okay, moving on. I believe Jerry Dulac. Jerry, if you had another question, go ahead.
Mike, I was just curious. You touched on just about everything, but have you had any players, whether you're regular players or the periphery players, who have tested positive?
We've had, I think, 2 positive tests But, it's been guys that obviously are not in our facility. They've gone through the appropriate protocol and are back to work. And I'm talking about dating all the way back through the spring of this thing. There have been 2 incidences on our football team.
Thanks, Mike.
Okay, and one more follow-up. Joe Rutter from the Tribune Review. Joe, go ahead.
Yeah, hi, Mike. I really didn't have anything else planned. Any other depth chart things you want to tell us? Anybody else competing there? Or anybody you're looking at that?
You guys know me. You guys love to ask questions about positions you perceive to be open. I always go into it with a mindset that all positions are open, and those that are significant players in those areas will quickly prove that and lay those conversations to bed. But as I go into training camp, all positions are open. I'm excited to see what everybody has to offer. Obviously in some certain circumstances, Marquise Pouncey is going to prove to be Marquise Pouncey, but largely I'm excited about these guys sorting themselves out because I believe what I say in that regard.
Okay, final opportunity for Brooke Pryor from ESPN. Brooke, go ahead with the follow-up.
Hey, Mike, John Harbaugh said that it was humanly impossible to adhere to all of the COVID-19 social distancing guidelines that the league has kind of laid out. I mean, how feasible is it to have social distancing mixed with football? Is that something, do you feel like it's humanly impossible?
I'm not necessarily worried about our ability to do it as we sit here today. I'm worried about our ability to do it a month or so from now, whenever it is that we get started. And being a part of a lot of these discussions and committees, one thing's for certain, the information is changing day to day. The technology is changing day to day. And so I'm comfortable with the overall trajectory of where we're headed. I'm sure by the time we're called to execute procedures and protocol and policy, that they will be realistic and doable and appropriate. But until that time, there's going to be some anxiety for all of us. I'm trying to keep my emotions in check. Again, like I mentioned, being a part of the process allows me to probably do that more effectively than most. But I'm comfortable with our ability to execute the protocol at the end of the day when we gather all the information and we continue through this process when we get our groups moving into a training camp-like circumstance.